Hello and welcome to the She Reads Romance Books podcast, the ultimate show for romance book lovers looking for the best books worth reading. I'm your host, Leslie Murphy, and in each short episode, I share my favorite book list of recommendations so you know exactly what to add to your must-read list. Join me as I explore the romance genre and have fun collecting book boyfriends along the way, because life is better with a love story. Hello, readers, and Happy New Year. Gosh, how the heck did it become 2025 already, right? I mean, I feel like I was just putting together my most anticipated new romance books of 2024, and yet here we are jumping into 2025 with so many new romance books hot on our heels. But before we turn our sights to those new books, I want to take time out and pay homage to the best of 2024 because, man, were there some really amazing books that released last year. Now, 2024 as a whole was really fantastic for the romance genre. We saw a huge trend explode regarding exclusive covers and sprayed edges. More imprints emerged, and more traditionally indie authors were picked up for those imprints and are now easily found in bookstores. There, were more announcements of book rights being picked up by studios to hopefully become TV or movie projects. And Spotify and Amazon Music are now offering audiobooks to subscribers with a ton of romance audiobooks to choose from. So many, many amazing things in 2024, including so many amazing new romance books that released. But of the hundreds, though probably thousands of romance books that released in 2024, between traditionally and indie published books, I read 18 that stood out as 5-star reads for me that were just honestly a cut above the rest in terms of the writing quality, the storyline and pacing, the character development, and the feelings that they all evoked in me as I was reading them. I've said it before in past episodes, I'm super, super picky when it comes to handing out 5-star ratings. I don't give it to just any book that I enjoyed, like some reviewers or influencers. Nope. Because that just dilutes the point of having like that top rating, I think, in my mind. And since I'm so discriminate in awarding a book a 5-star rating, you can be sure that when I do, it is simply one of the best in a book that you absolutely must read if you haven't already. And if you've been following me on She Reads Romance Books or listening to this podcast for a while, especially listening to my monthly roundup episodes where I share the romance books that I think you should read and those that I think you should just skip from my own personal reading list, then if our interests and feelings about books align or are similar, then you know that these books that I consider the best of 2024 are truly that. Now, after listening to this episode, you can go back to listen to my best of 2023 episode or head over to shereadsromancebooks.com under book lists and check out my best books of the year hub that will give you access to all of my list of best romance novels of the year, including my list of best romance books of all time, which you can download a PDF list of to find even more romance books worth reading. Also, once you have a handle on these best books of 2024, you'll want to stay tuned because I am going to be sharing my list of favorite book boyfriends of 2024 in my next podcast episode. And trust me, you are not going to want to miss that one, where I highlight the heroes who totally captured my heart this past year. And let's see, lastly, once we say goodbye to the best of 2024, you'll want to circle back to episodes 85 and 86 of the podcast, where I talk about my most anticipated new romance books of 2025 and my most anticipated new romantasy books of 2025, so that you can get excited for what's to come this year. as I anticipate some of the books on those lists to become some of the best romance books of 2025, or at least here's hoping. For this episode, I am going to list these romance books by publication month, but other than that, there really is no particular order to them in terms of best to least or anything like that, since they all were truly the best of the year in my mind. So here we go. The first book I fell in love with that released in 2024 is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. And I know I'm not the only one, as this was up for Best Romance in the 2024 Goodreads Choice Awards and in the She Reads Romance Books Book Club. For our December meeting, we all got together and talked about our favorites of the year. And Bride was definitely on several people's list for as their favorites. This was Allie's first foray into paranormal romance, and I was all over it, and I really cannot wait for more. I hope that's coming. It is the love story between Misery Lark, only daughter of the most powerful vampire councilman, who has been an outcast her entire life, and she becomes one once again when she enters a marriage of convenience with Lo, an alpha of a weird pact in hopes of forging an alliance between their two kinds. Now, I adore Allie's enemies to lovers books because I can never get enough of that trope. But this was sort of a different spin on it, and it was definitely one of the best slow burn romance books that I've ever read. Despite Misery and Lo being such strong, capable people, they were also really vulnerable in their feelings in the first that they were experiencing with each other, despite it being a marriage of convenience. And I think Hazelwood just wrote those moments perfectly. It was hands down one of the best of 2024 because of her perfect writing, the characters, the slow burn, and for using the paranormal world as this really great, I'll say, discourse on difference in how we can develop misconceptions and treat people differently due to our diversity. So Allie delivered again this year with Bride. Definitely make sure you read it. The next book that I became obsessed with was Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. I loved the Bellinger Sisters series, but this book, gosh, it honestly rivaled those as claiming the spot as my favorite Tessa Bailey book. It is that good. This is a sports romance kicking off her brand new series of haughty athletes, with this one being about a pro golfer. Never in my wildest dreams would I think I'd read a hot romance about a pro golfer, but here we are, and it was amazing. Wells Whitaker, he was once the hottest golfer on the tour, and he was followed by mega fan Josephine Doyle until one day he basically has this like meltdown and just walks off the tour. But the grumpy golfer starts to miss seeing Josephine's face, and when he sees that she's in some money trouble, he asks her if she'll become his caddy if he returns to the tour. Now, Wells is like the grump to Josephine's sunshine I did not know I needed in my life, and he became one of my new favorite book boyfriends. Man, I loved him so much. Sure, he was gruff, but he listened to Josephine, didn't mansplain, and actually took her advice, particularly about his sport, which you would think somebody at the top of their game would be like, yeah, whatever, especially coming from a woman. But he just truly saw her, and he took care of her without treating her with kid gloves like other people have in her life, like her parents given her type 1 diabetes. This book, honestly, is why I read romance. I devoured it in one sitting and just never wanted it to end. Plus, the steamy scene on the golf course, which I won't divulge, is sort of embedded in my brain. It was super hot. Gotta go read the book, get to that scene. It was awesome. All right, another romance book that I consider the best of 2024 is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan, which I honestly consider so much more than a romance book, but also this anthem to women everywhere that you are enough. So Soledad Barnes has her life all planned out, but then her life implodes and she finds herself trying to support her 3 daughters while also rediscovering herself when her marriage fails. Then there's this little question of a man she has immediate chemistry with, but is someone she really, really shouldn't be with. I won't go into more because that'll be sort of spoilers, but I love reading Kennedy Ryan's books because she packs so much into them that they are really more than just a romance. This Could Be Us is a book about rising up from the ashes, reminding yourself that you can stand on your own 2 feet, and demonstrating that parenting is the greatest act of selfless love. And yet, a bit of self centered love is also necessary too in your life, especially when you're a parent. It is a book about sisterhood and family and finding your person. It's truly all of this and more, and I just loved it. It was fantastic watching Soledad's journey of refinding the trust that she has in herself and recognizing an amazing man when she sees one, when he proves over and over that he is, and not like this scheming, rotten ex husband of hers who was truly horrible. Man, did I hate that guy. This book has it all. Definitely one of the best of 2024. I can't wait to read her next one in the series here in 2025. The next book that I consider one of the best of 2024 totally pulled on all of my heartstrings and had me bawling my eyes out, which seems like a given whenever I read this author. The book, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, which seemed like it would be this fun, lighthearted, fake relationship romance, especially if you looked at the cover. But it was honestly so much more. So again, cute rom-com setup where Justin believes that he is cursed because every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate after the two of them break up. And he happens to connect with Emma on Reddit because she feels like she has the exact same curse. So, in an effort to cancel out their respective curses, they decide to fake date each other for a time and then break up, hopefully breaking their curses in the process. So super cute, but then you learn more about Emma and her past and her toxic mother, and Justin and his heartbreaking present about his mother and the siblings he's about to take guardianship over. And despite these heavy notes, they find love with each other. And as I said, don't let this sweet book cover fool you. Abby made me feel everything with these characters. She made me weep with such heartache. She made me bawl my eyes out with compassion and empathy, and she made me smile with just such sweetness. I had so many feelings throughout this book, and I'm so thankful for the entire ride. I find that it honestly is those books that pull on my emotions in such a way that I'm moved to tears are often the ones that stick with me long after finishing that final page, which is why this totally earned 5 stars and made my list of best romance books of 2024. This was a tough read, though, I would say in some respects, because both Emma and Justin are dealing with some heavy issues while falling in love. But man, it was so, so good, deserving of all the accolades it earned this year. Okay, next on my list is The Rule Book by Sarah Adams, a second chance romance with one of the best heroines I think ever written. I seriously wish that I could befriend this woman in real life because she was just so freaking awesome. Her name is Nora, and she is a sports agent just about to take on her first client, who is none other than NFL player Derek, who happens to be her ex-boyfriend from college that she completely ghosted. And he's still pissed about it and ready to kind of make her life miserable and possibly ruin her career by taking him on as her first client until they wake up married to each other after a wild night in Vegas. So just when I think I can't love Sarah Adams' book more than her last that she, wrote, she gives us this one. Derek is, gosh, this hot jock I hoped he would be, and yet he was also this really kind and thoughtful guy who was completely like gaga over Nora. But Nora, okay, oh man, did I can't tell you how much I love this heroine. I seriously couldn't flip the pages fast enough to get to her next hilarious turn of phrase or just quirky way of talking or diffusing a situation. I also loved how Adams wrote about Nora's struggle with feeling different or sort of too much for people. I honestly just loved everything about this book, which was surprisingly more steamy than her previous books. It was incredible, hands down, one of the best of 2024. Highly, highly recommend you grab it and give it a read. The next book on my best romance books of 2024 list is Here We Go Again by Allison Cochran, a second chance romance with a road trip to remember. This is a queer romance about childhood best friends turned enemies, Logan and Rosemary, who are complete opposites but work at the same high school. They are forced into each other's orbit again when their beloved former English teacher and lifelong mentor tells them he has only a few months to live and he wants them to drive him cross country from Washington State all the way over to Maine so he can die. So, yep, that's kind of heavy, right? And this book definitely packs a punch from the original characters to the cross country road trip to the really human look at mortality and end of life. Right from the start, it seemed kind of obvious why these two were like oil and water. No two people could be more opposite than Logan, the sort of ride by the seat of your pants, impulsive philanderer who still lived at home with her father, and then Rosemary, the very controlling, anxious, and slightly uptight perfectionist. But embarking on a cross-country road trip with their dying former mentor, you knew that chaos was going to ensue, and it totally did, though it also turned into this amazing journey in sort of second chance romance for them, the two of them as well. Allison Cochran, gosh, she has this amazing ability to weave in important mental health and real life topics that impact personal lives and thus their relationships into her stories. And she definitely does so in Here We Go Again. While my heart broke at times for these characters, I also found myself laughing at the hilarity of them traveling around in this ridiculous van and getting into situations that just made you laugh out loud. So, wonderful book. Will definitely tug on all of your heartstrings. One of the best of 2024. This next book is extra special to me because it not only turned out to be a 5-star read and one of the best of the year, but it was also the inaugural book of the month for the She Reads Romance Books book club that launched last year. So, yes, 9-month Contract by Amy Dawes will always hold a special place in my heart, and it's so deserving. I wanted to pick a rom-com for our first book to read in book club, and Amy Dawes always delivers, and she did so with amazing banter and heat in this surrogacy romance where the grumpy mountain man Wyatt is ready to become a single dad. So he's on the hunt for a surrogate to give him a baby. Only his nosy brothers and his sweet niece sort of butt in and end up finding him the perfect someone. But baby making and keeping things professional pretty much goes right out the window once he meets Trista. So from their first attempt at insemination, which was hilarious, to their simmering attraction and all the animals on the farm that just kept multiplying, this book is such a great blend of Amy's humor and banter while also blending other important topics such as body image, family love and support, and the ability to trust that someone can be there for you no matter what. Wyatt is absolutely top book boyfriend material. He loves Trista for the woman she is and the body she has and shows her every chance that he can get. Acts of service is truly this man's love language, and he is also one amazing dirty talker, and I freaking loved it. So, Trista is a woman after my own heart. She is a product of parental neglect, and yet she's so strong and determined. I love how she slowly came to accept the love that Wyatt and his entire family had for her. If you love books with humor and heart and wonderful characters, you're honestly going to love 9-month Contract. Hands down, one of the best of 2024. My next book was the first time I read this author, and now I'm a huge fan, and this is Savor It by Tara DeWitt because I was just so captivated by this character-driven slow burn with all of the feels. It is the story about Sage Bird, who lives in this small town in the state of Washington, where everyone knows her and paints her into this box, and who are now like pitying her since her ex is engaged to somebody else. Enter in Fisher Lang, a hotshot chef in New York City who is not hot anymore since losing his sister and taking over guardianship of his teenage niece. He's sort of found himself in this depression, if you will. But Fisher is in town to open up a new restaurant, but he is getting some pushback from the town folks. So Sage agrees to help him out if he agrees to fake date her to help her reputation and be her partner to compete in the town race that she's always wanted to win. So this is a 5-star read for me where the writing, the story pacing, and the character development are just perfection. And that's really what I found in Savor It. I absolutely loved the dialogue between Sage and Fisher that kind of honestly let them drop their walls and show their true selves, hurts, flaws, and all. And it only made me and their fellow character, fall in love with them even more. When the two of them were flirting, it got so hot and came at these perfect moments that just hit you with all the feels. It was like this perfect slow burn that would just catch fire at the best times, and I could not put the book down because I only wanted more. Plus, this book totally made me ugly cry. There were so many moments that made me tear up, but then by the end, I'd be like full on sobbing. Gosh, I love books that can evoke such strong feelings, and this one sure did throughout, which is why it is on my list of best romance books of 2024. My next book was also a first read by an author, despite her prior 2 books being bestsellers, and that was This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. And I'll say that I am so glad I started with this book because I loved it. It was the perfect beach read for me this year that had me contemplating booking a trip straight to Canada, Prince Edward Island, where this book takes place. It's always been on my bucket list, but I kind of feel like it's moved up and I need to go ASAP. So this is about Lucy, the heroine, who first travels to Prince Edward Island to meet up with her bestie, but her bestie is arriving late, and so Lucy ends up hooking up with a local that night who she learns in the morning happens to be her bestie's baby brother, unbeknownst to her from the night before. So they keep it a secret for that summer, and every summer after that she goes back to visit, although it doesn't keep them from secretly hooking up a time or two as well. But in this current summer, things are different with Bridget, the bestie, acting weird before her wedding, and Lucy and Felix finally realizing that what they have is more than just summer material. So from the beginning of this romance, Fortune makes you feel like, honestly, you are a native on Prince Edward Island, from the oyster shucking contest to the beach walks, the lighthouse tours, and of course, the Anne of Green Gables sites. Trust me when I say you are going to want to take a trip to Canada after reading this book. But while I loved the brilliant setting of the story, I also truly loved the friendship between Bridge and Lucy and the forbidden romance that spans years between Lucy and Felix. It was another book so difficult to put down and proves why Carly Fortune is a must-read author. The next book on my list that earned a spot as one of the best books of 2024 was another book selection for the She Reads Romance Books book club. And man, was I so excited that Annabelle Monaghan said yes to joining us for book club, because I could not get enough of this book, which is Summer Romance. And to be able to talk about it with her in a conversation where I felt like we were all just hanging out in her living room instead of on Zoom was just incredible. Summer Romance is like this perfect package of the swooniest book boyfriends in a cute small town with the single mother who falls for her best friend's brother. Allie Morris, she's the heroine. She is a professional organizer whose own life is a mess. Her mother died 2 years ago, then her husband left, and she hasn't worn pants with a zipper in longer than she cares to remember. I hear you, girl. And this idea of her not wearing real pants is such a poignant metaphor to so many things we discussed in book club, let me tell you. So Allie is off, but Then one day she runs into a guy at the dog park and she feels like he sees her despite the mess of her life. But because Ethan is her best friend's younger brother and he's only in town for the summer, and because she's a bit of a mess, they agree to a summer romance only. Yeah, right. We know how that always goes. So, this is one of those books where I find it hard to convey into words how much I love it. And when I say I loved it, I loved everything about it. I loved Allie and how real she seemed and how much I could relate to her in so many ways. I freaking loved Ethan, who is just this cinnamon roll, but that was so hot. He was self-deprecating to help her and yet so sweet and caring and patient and thoughtful. Such an opposite to Allie's ex, who was a complete douche canoe. I loved how they found each other that summer and that Ethan's crush was alive and well so many years after the one that sparked in high school. This was the best beach read of the year, which also earned a spot on my best audiobooks, romance audiobooks that I recommend. So if you had not read this, have not read it yet, excuse me, definitely pick up Summer Romance. It was amazing. Okay, man, going back over these books makes me realize how amazing 2024 was in terms of cranking out some truly amazing books. And I just want to go back and reread them all now that I'm talking about them again. Same goes for this next book on my list of best of 2024, and that is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center, which was truly a rom-com about writing a rom-com that is a love letter to all rom-coms and romance readers. It, too, was a pick for the She Reads Romance book club in 2024, which was a real treat to chat with Catherine Center because we all adored this book and still talk about it to this day. It follows Emma, who is just this amazing heroine. Amazing. She's a rom-com screenwriter who hasn't made it big because she's been the sole caretaker to her father. But she's given this opportunity when her sister graduates college to go out to LA for a month to write a screenplay with her idol, Charlie Yates, who has written the worst rom-com of all time, completely ignoring the central tenets of what a rom-com should be. Yes, I adored Emma's staunch love and defense of the beloved rom-com in cinema, but it is truly the characters and central message that love and gratitude make the world go round that made this one of the best of the year. I am a romance book lover and rom-com lover at heart, and this book felt like such a fun defense of everything that I love about reading and watching rom-coms. Plus, the push-pull between Emma and Charlie while they were working together provided this amazing chemistry for a wonderful love story between two people really deserving of that love. The Rom-Commers was just the perfect read this year. So glad we read it in book club and talked with Catherine about it as well. It's truly one of the best of 2024. Another 5-star book, if you're still with me, I've got a few more to go through, for 2024 was Just Some Stupid Love Story by Caitlin Doyle, which is a second chance romance with the sweetest of cinnamon roll heroes and a totally jaded heroine. Molly Marks writes Hollywood rom-coms for a living, but she doesn't believe in love. Yes, she's one of those, except she did fall in love with her high school boyfriend, Seth, who she then ghosted on the eve of graduation and hasn't seen in 15 years until she runs into him at their high school reunion. So this book was a total surprise for me and a complete delight. It is this beautiful, quirky, second chance romance between two complete opposites who once loved each other as teenagers, but whose hearts were broken on their high school graduation day. Seth is just, he's this adorable cinnamon roll type hero I don't usually gravitate to, but I could not help but fall for this guy. Molly then is the heroine afraid of relationships, carrying around some significant daddy issues and family trauma. But Doyle weaves this incredible slow burn, second chance romance, as I said, between these two opposites that made me believe that they could finally find their happily ever after together. Her characterizations were spot on, but she didn't succumb to like weak generalizations that could have made this book seem predictable at best. Doyle's banter and self-reflections were just so well written that I was hooked and thoroughly enjoyed this read. It's truly one of the best of 2024 and one that I highly recommend if you haven't checked it out. This next book made my most anticipated new romance books of 2024 list without even a cover and without a book summary because I just I knew it was going to be fabulous, and it was all of that and more. And I'm talking about Play Along by Liz Tomfort, the fourth book in her Windy City series, which is just all around amazing. It is the best oops marriage romance in one of the best sports romance series that I think I've ever read. It follows Kennedy Kay, the only woman on staff for the Windy City Warriors, a professional baseball team, who's desperate to land her dream job with a new team next year for reasons you'll find out in the book. But a crazy night in Las Vegas leads her to wake up married to the team's shortstop, Isaiah Rhodes, the man who has been seriously crushing on her hard for like 5 years. But to save her job, they pretend to actually be a real couple, giving Isaiah the chance to convince her to give them a real shot. So I've already fallen completely head over heels for the Windy City series after reading the first 3 books, but Play Along honestly rivals Caught Up, the previous book, as my all-time favorite, if it's even possible to pick one, because they're all that good. Not only is this a fantastic sports romance between a hotshot shortstop and the female athletic trainer in his clubhouse, but it's such a great example of what a book with the oops Vegas marriage trope should be. Liz did such a great job conveying the history between Isaiah and Kennedy with the prologue and her previous book that it was easy to see how their forced proximity at the office and in the marriage that they had to uphold could easily tip Kennedy into falling for Isaiah when he was already head over heels. Isaiah is in the running for my top book boyfriends of 2024 because he was so incredibly kind, patient, and caring when it came to Kennedy's uncomfortableness with being touched. I love how he helped her feel truly alive when she was such a shell of her true self. From the writing to the plotline, the characters, backstories, and the romance, it was never, ever a question that this book would make my list of best of 2024. I feel like every single detail and aspect of the book was just a masterpiece. I loved it. Thank you so much, Liz, for this book from this year. My next favorite book of 2024 is another in a fantastic series, and that is Business Casual by B.K. Borison of her Love Light Farm series. This is a small town romance with a hero I just wanted to hug so badly while reading this story. Charlie Milford is in town as the temporary head of Love Light Farms, the Christmas tree farm in town, despite having an investment job in the city. He loves the small town, and soon his flirtations with Noba, the woman looking to open a new tattoo parlor in town, gives life to a secret friends with benefits relationship that they try and hide from everyone. This swoon-worthy love story hit me with all the feels with its wonderful characters. Charlie is the sweetest, again, another cinnamon roll, yet he also kind of broke my heart because beneath the facade and exterior that he sort of projects to everybody in town was this man who didn't believe that he deserved a place in people's lives. I loved the secret nature of Charlie and Nova's relationship, their banter, the flirting, the hilarious texting, and the honesty that they shared with one another. Borson makes writing romance seem so easy when you absolutely love everything about her work. This is a book, a couple, and a series I won't soon forget. Now, I fell in love with a new romantasy that kicks off a brand new series in 2024, and that is The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. It is a must-read if you have a thing for Hades, and of course, love fantasy romances with a strong heroine. This is one of those books that honestly, and I don't think there are that many, that had me from the very first sentence on the very first page, and it just did not let up on its hold on me until the very end, which was like page 600, mind you. and I'm now clamoring for book 2 that will release here in 2025. You first meet Lyra, who is set to destroy Zeus's temple on the eve of the 100 years old game, the game the gods play with mortals to find the next leader of Olympus. But she's stopped by Hades, who ends up picking her as his champion for the games when he's never participated in the past. Her task is to stay alive and win and fight her attraction to the god, which she fails at, by the way. So this book is epic and deserves all the stars. Lyra is, a strong, selfless heroine you love to read in romantasy books. And Hades, man, there's a reason we all love the god and king of the underworld, right? I love how this too is a complete story despite ending on a cliffhanger to set up the next book. So you could honestly just read it and not continue with the series, but trust me when I think that you absolutely are going to want to. If you're looking for the must-read fantasy book of the year with amazing writing, character development, and story pacing, this is it. It was just perfection. And now I'm a huge Abigail Owen fan for life. My next book is another sports romance in a fantastic series that I binge read all the way through and honestly want to double back and reread again because it was so good. This favorite of 2024 is Fall With Me by Becca Mack, which is the best roommates to lovers book that had me swooning for the hockey player who didn't believe he was lovable. Jackson Riley is a hot hockey player and such a playboy. He even takes a random girl on vacation, but ends up having a one-night stand with the woman next door in the honeymoon suite, only for that woman, Lennon, to turn up weeks later as the team's new photographer. So hockey romance books are my catnip, and when it comes to sports romance, and this is another to capture my heart this year, I didn't think any book could beat out Consider Me, which is book 1, as my favorite in the Playing for Keeps series, but man, Jackson and his hidden heart totally proved me wrong. This man who didn't think he was lovable proved to be one of the standout book boyfriends of the year. I loved the patience and kindness he showed Lennon at every turn. And it's so fun seeing a playboy fall for the woman of his dreams, and I could honestly reread Jackson's Fall over and over again. Definitely one of my favorites, the best of 2024. All right, next up is a fantastic holiday romance that totally took me by surprise, which is The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Allie Carter. It easily became one of my favorites of the year and the best holiday romance I didn't know I needed in my life. The end of 2024. It follows mystery writer Maggie Chase and thriller writer Ethan Wyatt, sort of rivals to lovers, at least in her mind, who get invited to a mystery location for the holidays, which happens to be the home of one of the greatest mystery writers of all time and Maggie's idol. But when her idol goes missing the second night they are there, they find themselves within their own mystery, trying to determine if Eleanor, the famous writer, is in trouble, where she went, who is to blame, all while trying to ignore their growing feelings for one another. I honestly picked this book up on a whim because I thought it sounded so clever, but I had no idea that I could get totally sucked into these characters and have it become one of my favorites of the year. Reading this book felt like I was in an escape room with Ethan and Maggie trying to get out of the mansion and solve the mystery. The fact that unrequited love was finally seen and returned was just really the icing on the cake. This would have been a fun book if it just had the mystery component, but it was phenomenal because Allie wrote such interesting, wounded characters. I loved how their backstories unraveled and how we got flashbacks to the past to understand their current feelings towards one another. I just loved them so much, and the mystery felt like its own Clue movie, if you're old enough to remember that movie. Super fun, super sweet, and such a fabulous book not to be missed. Oh my gosh. Okay, the last book to highlight as one of my best of 2024 is Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage, which is hands down my favorite in her Rebel Blue series, and a fantastic enemies to lovers romance with such a great look at the beauty of found family. Teddy Anderson is the heroine. She has grown up in her small town that she loves, but she's feeling a bit lost when we meet her in this book, with her job disappearing and her best friend finding the love of her life and not really needing her as much anymore. But she still has her best friend's brother Gus to annoy, so that's something, until he reluctantly asks her to help caring for his 6-year-old daughter for the summer. And close quarters have their way of opening these two up to each other and letting the sparks fly in more ways than one. I had been waiting for this enemies to lovers romance since book 1 in the Rebel Blue series, and boy, did it deliver. The barbs that just flow freely from Teddy and Gus's mouths as soon as the other enters the room are hilarious in just perfection, with neither one of them holding back. I do think you would probably enjoy the story more if you read the other books first, because their animosity towards one another has sort of built up in those books, but it can be read as a standalone if you just want to dive right in. I liked how Sage gave us a peek into the past to understand, honestly, where this animosity and tension came from, but also how their struggles in the present showed how truly right they were for one another, because they truly saw one another in the hurt they were shielding from others in their lives. And don't even get me started when Gus started calling her Teddy Baby. I mean, swoon, right? I swooned hard. And if you love enemies to lovers romance books, beautiful found family stories, books about friendship and the bonds that tie us, then you will love Lost and Lassoed. Definitely one of the best of 2024. Okay, oh man, this was one of my longer episodes. Thank you so much for sticking with me, but this wraps up my list of best romance books of 2024. I hope it was worth it. I think so, because all of these books deserve a place on your TBR list if you didn't get a chance to read them already in 2024. I honestly can't sing their praises enough, and trust me, I read a lot of romance, so it says quite a bit that these were the creme de la creme. As I mentioned earlier, stay tuned for my next episode, where I'm going to share my favorite book boyfriends of 2024. It's always a fun episode to put together, because I have a thing for collecting favorite book boyfriends throughout the year and making them mine. A few are from these best of books, but not all, so you're not going to want to miss that episode and list. And since it's January, I've kicked off my 2025 romance book reading challenge, where we read one romance book a month for the entire year to explore the variety of the romance book genre. It's super easy and a lot of fun, so check it out and sign up so you'll get emails reminding you of the month's challenge with book recommendations from me. And also, don't forget that we are continuing the She Reads Romance Books book club for 2025. Really hope you will join us, where we get to talk about one romance book a month, and then we have the amazing opportunity to talk with the author of that book in an exclusive Zoom call, which honestly just feel like these really cool, intimate conversations. So our January book of the month is Steal My Heart by Laura Pavlov. So we are going to be talking about this small town boss's daughter romance in book club on January 22nd. And then, as I said, we're going to get on Zoom again on January 28th to talk with Laura. I cannot wait. It's going to be awesome. Now, before I say goodbye, this is the perfect time, if you haven't already, to take 1 minute to leave a review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to. It would really help me kick off the new year right, with a lot of new reviews, so that the podcast can get the notice that I hope it deserves. Thank you so much. Again, Happy New Year. And until next time, happy reading, because life is better with a love story. That's all for this episode of the She Reads Romance Books podcast. I hope you enjoyed it and found some new books to add to your TBR list. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. It really helps me reach more romance book lovers like you, and I appreciate your support. If you're a book boyfriend collector like me, then you'll want to join my email list so you never miss a podcast episode or a new book list.
Just visit shereadsromancebooks.com/join and sign up today. As a thank you, I'll instantly send you my list of top 10 book boyfriends that will make you swoon. Trust me, you don't want to miss this list. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.